Another decades-old franchise thrown into a shallow grave. You shove the dirt on it, put a tombstone on there, and forget about it. Children of the Corn, 1980 whatever to 2023. It's dead. It's been known since the dawn of time that he who walks behind the rose shall make a shitty movie. Let's talk about it. I'm just kidding, buddy. That was just for the video. Okay? All right, we'll see you. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. My name is Justin. Thanks for stopping by. Let's talk about this movie. So, I hate to be the bearer of what was probably expected to be bad news, but spoiler alert, Children of the Corn is not that good. And we're going to dive into it. We're going to talk about the movie, of course, but one thing that came to mind, even aside from just this specific movie, is Children of the Corn is just, this new one, is just another example of a long line of potentially good franchises. Movies that started off strong, or at least had a good audience and a decently interesting premise in the 80s and 90s that now they're just rehashing one after another and one after another without any mind to future prospects of the franchise. This movie has already been rebooted. This is the 11th movie in the Children of the Corn franchise, and it is yet another installment in this franchise that does absolutely nothing to push it forward or even show us anything different that we've seen before. And that just chaps my ass in the worst way, because I don't know how the transfer of rights and who owns this and how it gets sold to one company, to one production company, and ends up in hands of certain writers and directors. I don't know how that happened. But what I do find frustrating is that Children of the Corn, whether or not you like the franchise or even like the first movie, it started out with a little bit of cachet with, being that it's a Stephen King story. And instead of trying to elevate this material and possibly setting up for more successful movies, they choose to take this lazy, cheap, get it out there on a streaming service approach that just ends up making just a giant nothing burger of a movie. And ultimately, yes, did AMC Theaters and whoever owns the rights to Children of the Corn get my $11? Yes, I paid $11.99 to go see this movie. They got my money, but it's short-term cheap money, which is what most films like this tend to be. And I can't wrap my mind around it. And instead of like forward thinking about, guys sitting at their big table in their office or whatever with all the studio heads and all the suits, there's not a thought of like, okay guys, we have a big name here, Children of the Corn. This is a highly recognizable franchise that's been around for decades. Why don't we make a really, really good movie that gets people excited for more? You understand, Suits, what I'm saying here? And then we can make even more money. But instead of doing that, they hire the guy who did Ultraviolet and make a direct-to-streaming, one-night-only theatrical movie that is instantly forgettable, instantly disposable, that has nothing of value to speak of, really, in terms of gore, in terms of story, in terms of freshening up the franchise, or maybe taking a spin on the original story and doing something new and fresh with it. None of that was here. They just want to make a quick buck, and I just don't understand it. Isn't the long game to make the most money possible rather than making something forgettable that is going to have terrible word of mouth? I guarantee you, all the reviews that are going to start flowing out about this movie are not going to be positive, and they're not going to entice an audience that would normally want to see something like this to go to the movies or stream it. As I'm getting ready to get into, I don't recommend this movie at all. And it's not as if it's terrible, but as I've said in many, many videos, something worse than being bad is being boring. And that is 100% what this movie is. It's a boring, forgettable nothing burger that I was so bored with that I just could not wait for it to be over. It was me and my buddy. I traveled 30 minutes to go see this movie. It was the longest I've ever traveled to go see a movie, and I had a feeling it was going to be bad. This movie was made way back in 2018 or 2019. There was a couple test screenings, and then there was just crickets for 2 years, and all of a sudden they dumped it in a theater for one night to hopefully scramble together to make some bit of money before it goes to streaming, and it's just completely lost to the oblivion of streaming. I guess to set up what little bit of story and character motivation there is, the beginning of the movie, I won't spoil everything. There's an inciting incident where this group of adults in this town, there's an issue with this corn. There's a lot of corn logistics and corn politics going on along this same time, but at the beginning of the movie, this group of adults kills this group of kids by using this gas. That's all I'll say, although it's not that much deeper than that. That's sort of the inciting incident that pisses off this group of kids initially. Now, as far as the osmosis of this evil from he who walks behind the rose getting into these kids, your guess is as good as mine. Nothing really makes sense. Once the kids turn, they're just sort of evil for no reason. And then the rest of the movie, after that quick setup, which does give the kids a little bit of retaliation, justification after that, it just turns into a boring slog of walk and talks and this lead evil corn girl being menacing. She's fine. She's not as quirky and as sinister as some of the villains we've seen in other movies. Children of the Corn 2 is my favorite in the franchise. I have the trilogy that Arrow Video put out a few years ago, and it has the first 3 movies. As far as I'm concerned, the first and second movies are really the good ones. But even after the first movie, which is, I guess, sort of a legitimate horror film, it instantly goes into 90s camp with the sequel, The Final Sacrifice. So there was never really a leg to stand on as far as having like a basis of a good trilogy or a good first few movies. It pretty much jumped off the deep end immediately after the first one. That's really as far as I can break down the plot of this movie because there's just nothing to it. There's one small scene of gore. There's virtually 0 on-screen kills. So if you're going for gore, there's no on-screen kills. There's a couple scenes that have a little bit of gore and a little bit of blood, but nothing memorable. Digital shit. I don't know. I'm just sick and tired of these franchises being thrown in the dirt, made to be disposable. I think even a cheesy premise and a cheesy movie like Children of the Corn could be good. Just look what they did with Halloween. They could have very easily just came out of the woodwork with another shitty Halloween movie. Say what you will about Blumhouse, but at least they tried to elevate it, and it was very successful. I think there is a good Children of the Corn movie to be had, to be made, to be discovered. This ain't it. And it certainly isn't going to spark interest in the franchise for maybe studios with a little bit more resources to make a better movie. And it's just gonna die on the vine or die on the cob, so to speak. This movie's forgettable. I don't recommend it. I wouldn't even recommend streaming it for free. It's not worth your time. Go watch something else. Go dig up a hidden gem like Hunter x Hunter with Devon Sawa, or I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore with Elijah Wood. Something like that. Just find something different, man, because this was a frustrating watch, and I had trouble getting through it. And it's just, it's not good, not good. I'm going to give it 1 star. If I could give it half a star on Letterboxd, I would. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. Move along. Because it's the, move along. Don't watch the movie is what I meant. But guys, that's it. I have nothing else I can say about this. Another decades-old franchise thrown into a shallow grave. You shove the dirt on it, put the fucking a tombstone on there, and forget about it. Children of the Corn, 1980 whatever to 2023. It's dead. But guys, I think we're done here. Stay weird. Remember to always be yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
The Amazing Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk will return after these messages.
Message for Ronald McDonald!
I do believe this mailbox is addressing me. McDonald's Happy Meal!
Hamburger! Soft drink! Fries! All regular size!
Now that's what I call special delivery.